This is the town of Bucha. Russians had occupied it early days of the invasion, killed thousands of civilians in this village and neighboring villages outside of Kyiv. So we're here today to pay respects to the town, learn more about the history, and then just kind of be here and just be around it, listen to stories and talk to people. And we're coming up to a memorial now on the other side of the church, which is going to show the names of civilians in this town that were killed by Russians. Non-combatants, children, elderly, women, just horrible.
So these monuments, you can read the name of every single person who was killed, including a family that was shot while trying to evacuate the city. And the oldest person killed was almost 100 years old, and the youngest was only a couple of months old. There are, however, about 80 bodies that were found that were so severely damaged they have not been identified, and it's almost impossible to identify them even through DNA samples. And they're buried in the town cemetery, each one under in a numbered grave.
This isn't the only location in Bucha that I've been to. We came here in the summertime and we spent time in Herping as well. And there is, I don't even know how many of these sites there are around the town, but this is just one of many. So there's hundreds of names and unknown names on this memorial, but there are maybe hundreds of these memorials in the town. So thousands of people, thousands of civilians that didn't deserve this.
First started burying people in the churchyard around the 10th or 11th of March. If you remember, the occupation began on March 3rd. Up until that point, the Russian occupiers just said, well, whatever, it's March, it's cold, leave them out on the street lying there, and they did not allow people to bury them. So there was a long process of exhumation of bodies from mass graves. There were 2 mass graves in the city, and also there were a number of just sort of, what would you say, casual burials when someone found someone and they just buried them in their yard. It was very difficult, both psychologically and just physically, to endure.
Well, we're in the middle of an information war, and the Middle East has kind of taken over the consciousness of social media and the internet and people. It's important not to forget about this. So the ones that have been aware of this and either lived through it or tell the story of it, we have to continue to do more to amplify these stories and tell them.
You know, I mean, you hear about it, you read about it, but to be here in person, it's difficult to put into words.
Did you have an idea of what you thought it would be before seeing it for yourself?
No. I didn't.
When humanity's worst tendencies are unleashed, which is war, pretty much in its most rawest form, you give men license just to act on their most base, characteristics. Get drunk, go break shit, rape, pillage, kill, burn, and this is the human toll of those unchecked instincts. It's basically you turn into animals. You lose any sense of governance, of morals, of anything. You just run wild, and this is the cost. And what makes it weird is we're in this holy place, which should have been a sanctuary of peace, and instead it's got a mass grave in the backyard. I can't quite reconcile it all and put it into words right now, but it's just that collision of the best and the worst, and this price that these people paid here is unfathomable.
Thank you for your time, buddy. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around how humans can have the capacity to do this to other humans.
It's scary.
It's scary. I don't know what has to go through, what kind of process somebody has to go through to reach a point where doing this becomes possible for them. I don't understand that.
They've been fed a lie their entire lives living in Russia to believe that everyone wants to be Russian, that everyone, thinks back on the glory days of the empire. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think, for them it was a shock, kind of like when the Japanese surrendered. They had never told their people the truth. They had been telling them they'd won every single battle that was ever fought. And so I think the same propaganda and lies for a soldier that arrives here and believes they're going to be welcomed as a hero, and it's the exact opposite. They get shot out and resisted, and that, it's 100% a black and white conflict of right and wrong. There's just no debate about this particular war.
So behind me in the town of Bucha are the names and unnamed civilians that were executed by the Russian military last year before Ukrainian armed forces were able to liberate the town. And it's increasingly upsetting to me. I visited Bucha before in Irpin and I've seen it. But if you're on social media right now, and if you are feeling extra amplified about combating colonialism, imperialism, and you're protesting and marching in the streets because of what's happening in the Middle East, if you've been ignoring this for the last year and 10 months, shame on you. Shame on you. If you have been openly ignoring this, if you've been seeing my posts from Ukraine and you've been silent and you haven't said anything, you haven't been talking about colonialism, imperialism, fake. That's the only way I can put it. You're getting points right now. You're trying to do things for attention, and then you're going to forget about it until months later when the next thing happens. But if you've been ignoring Ukraine and you're anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, activist, shame on you. So this is a collection of vehicles from the neighboring towns outside of Kyiv that Russians shot into, destroyed. These are civilian vehicles. People were just driving the day Russians invaded and the weeks after and murdered everyone in the vehicles and then destroyed them. So
all these cars were shot by the Russian occupiers. And we collected this car from the city, from the Bucha, from the Herping.
People in those cars were just killed by Russians because people were in traffic jam trying to leave Bucha, trying to leave in Irpin, and Russians were just shooting artillery on these cars. The Russians came, personally they just finished people who were alive, they killed them. As you already know, you've been on the cemetery where you were able to see hundreds of names of people killed here. And that's what Russians bring actually, like atrocities and dead people, destroyed cars, destroyed buildings, shrapnel everywhere. Russians were just sniping people here for no reason.
The most moving parts, I think, is the two cars on the other side that has some toys on them, so probably they had kids inside.
I think I cannot put into actual words for whoever is viewing to understand. It's just like every single car wreck here is at least one person dead. Like just ordinary people like you, me, or whoever is watching. And sometimes it might be a whole car full of families, like just like that, just killed like animals. Like what the fuck?
So the thing is, right now we see results of, let's say, 1 month of the hardest fights. I just cannot imagine how many other like these cars, like civilian victims, there right now, because the war is going right now.
There's a tank museum apparently of destroyed Russian tanks as they came into the town. We're going to try to get as much as we can out of it. It gets dark faster. It's winter time, so in Ukraine it gets dark about 4:30 in the afternoon. So we'll see what we can do.
All the streets of Bucha and Irpin were full filled with metal, like this, with tanks, something what you can see in Kyiv on square. Here you see this hole. This is hole from RPG, and it goes directly through the engine, all the engine to the compartment. And this turret weighs around 8 tons. And these turrets can fly up to 20 meters and fly far away from the place.
This is an MTLB and it was destroyed. It lost its turret. That's why it's missing the top ring. One of the features of Russian military equipment that have a turret is when it's destroyed, the turret will pop off really high. Also known as the turret toss. And now you can come here and bear witness to what the Russians brought, because the Russian media and their warfare, their hybrid warfare, you can forget about it, right, in the media space. But when there's physical places to come and see it and remember, the Russian media part of it's taken out, because it's still physical remembrance of what happened. So today I'm here with special guest Rick the Ukrainian, who's been taking us around suburbs in the Kyiv Oblast, in Bucha and Irpin. And right now we're in Herping, and one of the main streets within the town, seeing the rebuilding process, because as you know, the Russians came here, committed atrocities, war crimes, destroyed homes completely, killed civilians for weeks. So we're here to see it, and there's still remnants of those early days. There's still destruction, but homes are being built, and the rebuilding process has begun here in Herping.
I think lately a lot of people around the world, when they start talking about that Russia wants peace, that they are forgetting that Russia wants this, and Russia was doing this, and Russia never wanted any peace. Russia wants to divide and conquer.
They won't continue committing these acts because this is a completely civilian building. Like Rick said, there's entire floors still missing. Workers are in there right now, gutting individual apartments of debris. It's literally, they're in there right now, it's falling.
Families in 2014, they left Donbass, Donetsk, Kyiv, Oblast, many other towns and cities and villages in there. And they settled here. And these towns, they started actively building up cities there, actually. Escaping the war, and the war chased them. And I think this is also something that teaches me personally that this war cannot be escaped. You need to fight it. You need to fight Russians, you need to fight back, you need to stop trying to close your eyes on it. If you stand in their way and they need to capture a city or town, they will just destroy it. You know, that they just burn them to the ground, like it happened with Bakhmut, Mariupol, and you see also Irpin.
So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you got something out of it. We went around Bucha, we went to Herping, we talked to locals, showed that the remnants of the early days of the invasion still exist, still in the Kyiv Oblast. You know, the Ukrainian armed forces liberated Kyiv last year, but what Russia did here still remains. And telling these stories are very important. We talk about the front lines often, and that's still very important to make sure that the frontline soldiers' stories are told and what's happening on the territorial changes and gains. But coming to where the war impacted the people and hearing their stories, even a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, it's going to be important because this is going to take a long time to rebuild. And it's being rebuilt, and it's an active process, but it's almost 2 years now. And it's still, it still needs some time. So thank you to Rick for coming out and showing me places, and to Mike for coming with and doing all of this amazing work. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel to help me support me travel across the world or travel across the US to bring you guys more stories and more content like this. So thank you again.